Let's get into it. I did not see this happening, guys. Coach Colin here, Soul Not For Sale podcast. We got Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson in a debate. And listen, you saw the title. Tucker Carlson dominates. That's how I think when I hear this whole thing going on. Because Joe goes into his regular thing of, oh, this is the way, and this is just how it happens, even though you have no idea what you're talking about. But everybody has their own opinion. And you know what? He probably has some intel from certain agencies. Maybe, I don't know. But I would think Tucker might have access to those same type of people. And actually, I know for a fact that he does. He talks about it. So they get into this debate on AI. Joe is team AI. Tucker is team human. And then the concept of God comes about. And I think Tucker handled himself really, really well in this situation. Don't forget about the new channel that I got, Coach Colin Media. Click that subscribe button if you want to hear me break away from the Rogan content and just bringing you news, culture, society, politics. We're uploading like 2 to 4 times a day on that channel. We already got like 40 videos up there, so go ahead and check it out. If not, it's okay. We got this channel. Let's get into the Joe Rogan clip.
My belief is that biological intelligent life is essentially a caterpillar, and it's a caterpillar that's making a cocoon, and it doesn't even know why it's doing it. It's just doing it, and that cocoon is going to give birth to artificial life, digital life. It's going to give birth to a new life form. I think we're real close to that. I think we're way closer than that than most people would ever want to admit.
I agree.
And I think,
but can we assign a value to that? Is that good or bad?
That's a good question. It depends. Universally, I think it's the path. I think it's what happens. I think what this thing is, if you extrapolate, if you take the concept of a sentient artificial intelligence that has the ability to utilize all the information that every human being has on Earth at a level of computing that's far beyond the capabilities of the human mind, and all of our supercomputers that currently exist, because it'll design much better computers. It'll use quantum computers. It'll have the ability to recode things and change things. It'll make better versions of itself. So instead of biological evolution, which is very slow, it takes a long time, relatively. It's pretty quick, really, when you think about it. Like how long, it's not that long to go from being a single-celled organism to being a human being flying a plane, really, relatively, over the course of 1 billion years, if you think about how long the universe has been around. But it's slow compared to technological evolution. I mean, 100 years ago, we didn't have shit. And now we could send videos from your phone and it'll hit New Zealand in a second. It's crazy. The stuff that we have now is beyond imagination. It's essentially magic for people 100 years ago. If that keeps going, it's ultimately going to lead to a life form. And if that life form has now untethered, it doesn't have any problems with biological evolution. Now it's just about information and implementing the technology that's available and then increasing that technology and making it better and better. It essentially becomes a god. Because if you give it enough time, it has the ability to make better versions of itself, which will in turn make better versions of itself. It has the ability to utilize everything. It has the understanding of everything that exists in the universe. It's black holes, dark matter, everything. And it probably has the ability to harness that or even reproduce that. So if you take artificial sentient intelligence and it has this super accelerated path of technological evolution, and you give artificial general intelligence, sentient artificial intelligence far beyond human beings, you give it 1,000 years alone to make better and better versions of itself, where does that go? That goes to a god. It literally can create universes.
But what kind of god? So, like, I think of it this way. So the first stage of the Industrial Revolution consisted of people building machines that were stronger than the human body.
Right.
Right? So the steam-powered loom.
Sure.
The backhoe.
Combustion engine.
Combustion engine. They replace muscles.
Right.
Right. So that's what the machine does. It becomes stronger than the human body. The second stage, which we're in the middle of, consists of creating machines that are more powerful than the human mind. That's what computing is. And I would say AI or supercomputing is just that exponentially.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make it a god in the sense that the machine, however powerful it is, any more than a backhoe is a god because it can dig a trench faster than 100 men, it is still something that people created. So the story hasn't really changed. At the center of the story are people And their creative power may lead to unintended consequences, but the machines that they build did not make the universe and did not make people. People made the machines.
Right.
So but I would say the part I agree with is there's a spiritual component here for sure. People will worship AI as a god. AI, Ted Kaczynski was likely right, will get away from us. We will be controlled by the thing that we made. All those are bad. Like, that's just bad. And we need to say unequivocally, it's bad. It's bad to be controlled by machines.
Right.
Machines are helpmates. Like, we created them to help us, to make our lives better, not to take orders from them. So I don't know why we're not having any of these conversations right now. We're just acting as if this is like some kind of virus, like COVID, that spreads across the world inexorably. There's nothing we can do about it. Just wait to get it. It's like, no. If we agree that the outcome is bad, and specifically it's bad for people, we should care what's good for people. That's all we should care about. Is it good for people or not? If it's bad for people, then we should strangle it in its crib right now.
Right.
And why just blow up the data centers? Like, why is that hard? If it's actually going to become what you just described, which is a threat to people, humanity, life, then we have a moral obligation to murder it immediately. And since it's not alive, we don't need to feel bad about that.
Well, you could say the same about the atomic bomb, right?
Yes, you could.
And you could say that we have to develop it like Oppenheimer felt before the Nazis
I
did.
love that. How'd that work? How'd that work?
Well,
I love, by the way, that people on my side, I'll just admit it, on the right, have spent the last 80 years defending dropping nuclear weapons on civilians. Like, are you joking?
Right.
That's just like prima facie evil.
Yeah.
If you can't, if we hadn't done that, then this, that, the other thing, that was actually a great savings life. No, it's wrong to drop nuclear weapons on people. And if you find yourself arguing that it's a good thing to drop nuclear weapons on people, then you are evil. Like, it's not a tough one, right? It's not a hard call for it's not a hard call for me. So with that in mind, like, why would you want nuclear weapons? It's like just a mindless, childish sort of intellectual exercise to justify, like, oh no, it's really good because someone else will get it. How about no? How about like spending all of your effort to prevent this from happening? Would you kill baby Hitler, famously?
Right.
So I don't know why we're sitting back and allowing this to happen if we really believe it will extinguish the human race or enslave the human race. Like, how can that be good?
Well, if God creates everything, if God created the universe and God creates people, God probably creates a process. And we think that we are very important because we are very important to us. But are we very important in a universal sense? Not really. Like, if the Earth just imploded and disappeared, if the sun went supernova and our whole solar system was blown to bits, the universe, it still exists.
It depends
and
how
God
wide
created...
for sure. In the end, as Conan O'Brien, the famous philosopher, once said, every grave goes unvisited, which is true, and that's an important perspective. Pull out the lens a little bit. Does it really matter? No, it doesn't.
But it does matter.
Do your kids? How about this? Do your children matter?
Yes, sure.
Do their lives matter? Would you die for them?
Yeah.
Yes, of course. Yes.
Everything matters. If you're not comfortable,
Exactly.
it matters. If you're sitting here like you don't want to wear headphones, like let's not wear headphones. That matters. Everything matters. At scale.
But what matters most, like,
right? That is the evil, right? The evil is it's the same thing as saying the necessary evil of dropping nuclear bombs on civilians is if you don't do that, then there'll be more evil. Then more things will happen. It's kind of the same thing. Like, it comes
from the same place, which is hubris. Like, imagining you're God, you have unlimited power, and you have omniscience. You can imagine what the future is going to be. You can't. You're a fucking idiot. You're a person. Like, you can't even make your wife happy.
Right.
Like, the limits of your power are really obvious. The limits of your wisdom, same. So, like, don't jump into shit, big things, whose outcomes you can't predict with certainty. Like, you can't know. Go in with humility. I guess that's what I'm saying. Right? So,
yeah.
And do what you can, knowing that you're probably going to screw it up and you probably won't achieve your goal, but like, you should try. And on the AI question, everyone I've ever talked to about, I'm hardly an expert. I don't own a computer, okay? But everybody I've ever talked to, and there's many people, are like, yeah, it's, could get away from us and enslave us. Well, let's say no to slavery. How's that? Is that a tough one? Not for me.
Yeah.
I mean, and maybe a good use of nuclear weapons would be to hit the data centers. No, I'm serious. Like, why is that crazy?
It's not. It's not if you think that human beings are the end of this evolutionary chain.
Well, what else is? Some supercomputer in a data center outside Dulles Airport? No. I mean, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
I don't actually think that individuals, I don't think I'm that important. My life is that important. I will die. I know that. And I try to keep that in mind every day.
But you're important to everybody that cares about you. You're important to the people
around you. But if we don't think people are important, then what do we think is important? I guess that's what I'm saying.
Not necessarily that we don't think people are important, but if evolution is real, and if there is this constant... I don't know, but it's
That's for another episode. But you know what? Honestly, what I've realized because I've made a lot of videos about Joe Rogan and his views of AI and how it's inevitable and you gotta merge and it's gonna be like having a phone and all of this stuff. And I've watched Sam Altman talk like a robot and act like, oh, I don't know what's gonna happen. We're pretty creative, so I'm sure we'll find other jobs. And he has no responsibility to find the millions of jobs that everybody's gonna need when this thing replaces all their. I notice in making all this content towards it, when you're team human versus team AI, you are going to win if you're on team human, especially if it's to a consensus of people. Because the worst part of team AI is that we go away. And the argument for people who are on team AI are like, well, I mean, he even said it. He's like, well, if you think people are the end all be all, if you think, what are you saying? Because then you have to really break it down. Tucker brought up your kids. Are your kids important? Yes. But at the same time, are people, you're saying that about your children and grandchildren. I don't know if he realizes that, if he's just in conversation, he just doesn't notice it. But he's saying about his children, his grandchildren, his great-grandchildren, that maybe you guys aren't that important. Maybe I lived it up, and that's such a boomer mentality. Maybe I lived it up enough, and not all boomers. I know some of you are cool as hell, I know. But maybe I've lived it up enough, and like maybe I'm supposed to go away and everybody else should too. I don't know. Maybe we're just the last generation. Makes sense. We're the best, right? I guess it's all downhill from here. Sorry for those guys behind us. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what? Oh, man. I think Tucker handled himself really well. I got a couple clips from Elon Musk that I'm going to play as well. But just to dissect some things that were said. First off, Tucker Carlson handled himself really well when it came up to the whole, is it going to be a god? That whole backhoe analogy that he used, that's really good. Obviously, it's not the same because AI versus a backhoe is a little different, but the analogy is still rings true. Is a backhoe a god? If we can make something that could pick up a skyscraper and throw it 10,000 miles, does that become a god? Is something going to be stronger than us and now it's labeled as a god because we made it? If something's more intelligent than us that we made, does it then take the position of a god? I would say no. Now, one thing that Joe Rogan says at the beginning, he goes, universally, it's the path. But then the challenge has to be, where do you see AI in like what he's fantasizing? Where do you see this in the universe? Where do you see these biological humans or humanoids, whatever, throughout the universe going extinct because of something they made, and then that thing takes over and that thing roams the universe and creates universes eventually? Where do you see any of that? You don't see it anywhere. So it's interesting to use the term like universally it's the path. You know, Sam Altman said when he was on JRE that Joe seems very neutral. I have never heard him have a very neutral take on this. It's always very team AI. And I'm not going to say anti-human, but I'm going to say it's team AI. I'm not going to call him anti-human. I wouldn't do that. But how is it a god? How would it become a god if it could make a universe? First of all, how would it make a universe? And second of all, who would it be god to? You know, he's kind of, imagine thinking that you're roaming the universe that was created by God and you are a god. Or even better, thinking that you are one planet on the universe, making technology, and you have what it takes. Us as a species have what it takes to make God. I'm going to go back to anti-human. Actually, it's not even anti-human. That is of Satan. That's what Satan, like, you know, biblically and whatever scriptures you read, that's what Satan wants. Satan wants you to believe that he can do everything that God can do for you and that he should be worshiped like God. And I see so many parables between what people talk about Satan to be and what people are talking about AI becoming. There's just so many. And it has, in exactly the same way, it has so many more followers. And the only thing it's going to really rule is the world. right? And that's what they say about Satan, that Satan rules the world. And by the world, I mean the worldly, deceptive, sexual deviancy, all of that stuff. He rules that, the materialism of it all. That's what he rules. And if you can step outside of that and have a relationship with God, then you can rebuke Satan. You can remove Satan from your life. But he will always be there to tempt you. That's just what I know of it. But just going back to, people will worship AI. And that goes right along with, I'm just going over the notes that I took here. People will worship AI. Tucker's right about that. They will worship it, but that doesn't make somebody a god. People will worship a lot of people. People worship Buddha. It doesn't make Buddha a god. And even moving away from that, people worship Cardi B. At no point does Cardi B become a god. I don't know, man. It just seems the arguments that he makes always seem very anti-human, because it goes back to what Jordan Peterson said, right? Jordan Peterson talks about good, compassionate people saying the phrase, there's too many people on the planet. And so many people, I'm sure even there's some of you that are watching are like, yeah, too many. And Jordan Peterson always says, well, what do you mean? Like, what are you saying when you say that? Because it seems like it's a compassionate thing where you're worried about the planet. But in reality, under and kind of in front of what you're really saying is there are too many people. You're also suggesting that there's certain people that have to go. So who has to go? How many people have to go? How are they going to go? And who is going to choose? So when you say these things about, artificial intelligence is just going to take over and we're just we're just a cocoon and it's going to be the butterfly that comes out of it, what you're actually saying is we are all going to perish at the feet of this creation. That's what you're really saying. If you're talking about it becoming a god, are you talking about all of us being there too? So do we become minions? Like Tucker Carlson was talking about, do we become slaves? It's a very interesting conversation. You really have to dig deep into what people are really saying when they talk about AI taking over, and how either the arguments are either it's very natural or it's going to be great. That's always their arguments. But if you really look underneath, it doesn't seem natural, and it definitely doesn't seem great at all. We already have problems with a 1% elite class ruling all of us. And then you're telling me that same 1% class is going to make a thing that's going to rule all of us even to a further extent? Why? What? And that's somehow a good thing. And that's inevitable, and we should all just sit back and do it. And the one thing that Tucker brought up that I love is, why aren't we doing anything about this? I've talked about this at length. Why aren't we doing anything about this? Because it seems like it's only going to affect us. I don't know that this is going to affect Elon Musk. He has billions of dollars. I don't know if it's going to affect Gates or Klaus or everybody who's in the Bilderberg group, everybody in the World Economic Forum, royalty. I don't know if it's going to affect these demon elite people, but it's definitely going to affect us. So why do we have to sit back and just watch it happen? And then we have people on screens like Rogan saying that it's inevitable and it's just universally the path. And we all have to accept that. I don't get it. And the reason that I always make these videos is because there should be some kind of counter voice, and there's not enough. And they're not as loud. Like, I don't have a platform like his, and I don't know if I ever will, but we should be saying something. We should be able to search for people who are anti what's happening, and we should be able to find a bunch of videos. And at the very least, people will find mine. So the last thing that he said is God, he was talking about how God, he was actually referencing how God created AI. Because he's like, if God created everything, then he probably created a process. And he's suggesting that he created us to create AI, and then that's how it goes. To suggest that God created AI and then also have the question, are we important to this universe? Are we important to the universe? The answer to the first is no. God did not create AI. God created you and I. And we are far more divine than any of the elites want to admit. They don't want you to know how important you are. They don't want you to know how significant you are. And I'll stick to that forever. I know it doesn't feel that way. And like everything else that you've seen, it's by design. 100% by design. And then to the question, are we important to the universe? Again, I guess I answered that already. Yes, you are very important to this universe. And you're not supposed to just die off like some cocoon. You're supposed to just shrivel up and disappear. You're supposed to do that to the extent of leaving a legacy, and your children come, and it just keeps going like that. And until the planet blows up, of course. Or, Elon Musk has a plan. You go to another planet, you start populating there, and another one, and another one. So that seems to be what's in order. But just and here is the twist. Here's in my mind, the demonic twist, that people are going to start acting as if God wants AI to come into fruition. But when I keep hearing about AI and I keep hearing about what it's going to do, it seems very demonic. And that would be the trick that would be done to all of us. And it's funny enough, Rogan's talked about this as well. Get everybody to get this thing in their head, Neuralink, and everything's going to be great, and it's going to be paradise. But all it's really going to do is separate you from what you are today. And whether or not you know it, and whether or not you feel it, and I know your life might be hard, you are very divine. You are very special. You really are. And I don't mean special in a woke way where everybody should just bow down to you. You shouldn't have to work. I don't mean like that. But what's inside of you is extremely special. Your soul is extremely special. And when you adopt things like that, those chips and everything, it takes you further away from what you really are, your divine nature. So it's funny that there's one guy who's trying to get us into these whole chips into our brains, which I'm going to play a clip from him in a second. And then there's another guy who's this wilderness guy, Rogan, and he's talking about how AI is just universally the path. Using the word universally as if we know. Do you know what's going on outside of your continent? You don't. You don't know what's going on outside of the planet, outside of the solar system. You say the word universally. It's universally accepted. Is it? It's universally the path. Is it? I don't know, man. I'm starting to see it as more and more demonic as time goes on. I really am. I don't think that this is a good thing that's coming. And if we got really deep into it, I think the whole ghost in the machine, you ever heard of that? There's a ghost in every machine. I think right now there are certain people trying to call certain entities into these machines as we build them. And we're always going to look at them like robots, and we're always going to act like, oh, this is just artificial intelligence. But really it's something like Tucker Carlson keeps bringing up. There's going to be something way more spiritual to it. And as you can see right now, we are definitely in the midst of a holy war. If we're not in it right now, we're stepping into it. But as people in society, there is definitely good and evil at work, and evil seems to be working overtime whenever you turn on your TV or your phone. So just saying, let's get into it. I've been talking a long time. I'm sorry, guys. I get real passionate about this one because what are you saying? You're saying we're not important. To what extent? People really have to dissect certain things that are said by these mega stars or these huge platforms. What are you really trying to say? I did a whole clip. Okay, let me just play the video. But what are you really trying to say underneath when you say this is universally the path? It is, in a way, saying people need to perish or merge. And who are you? Who are any people to make that decision for all of us? Why is it that maybe 10 million people who are creating AI and technology, why are those 10 million people deciding what happens with billions of people? It makes no sense in my mind. Let's play this real quick.
This is extremely important. I think the danger of AI is much greater than the danger of nuclear warheads by a lot. And nobody would suggest that we allow anyone to just build nuclear warheads if they want. That would be insane. And mark my words, AI is far more dangerous than nukes. Far. So why do we have no regulatory oversight? This is insane.
Hey, Mom. Hey, Dad. It's me, Ella. Well, a digital version of me.
Interesting. It just goes into this whole thing, but I just wanted to play that little thing by Elon Musk. When you got somebody like him saying something like that, I don't understand why we all aren't taking heed. The only thing, and again, back to going to the spiritual elements of all this, the only thing I can see is all these people ignoring what's going to happen to all of us is because they want to usher in something that is evil. And I know I sound crazy. That's why I'm like stumbling over that word. You have no idea how many times I've wanted to use the word evil and demonic, because that's what it seems. It doesn't seem on the up and up. This seems different. And I don't mean different like, oh, I'm a caveman and, oh, man, people got fire and wheels. What's going on here? It feels much different. Because the fire and wheels, they helped all of us. Learning to ride horseback, it helped all of us. You know? Airplanes helped all of us. Don't get me wrong. The people who owned horses when the car came out, they suffered. I understand completely. But a lot of the advancements in the world have been helping people in the world as they spread through. Wrecking a couple of industries sometimes. But this seems... And it's said by literally creators and very smart people, that's going to take away jobs from all of us. So why are we all... There was a man, Tyler Perry, who was going to build an $800 million studio, and then he saw Sora and he stopped. How many times... Like, Tucker's right. Like, why aren't we... the phrasing he used was amazing, but he's right. Why is there no one stepping up to what these people are doing? And by these people, I just mean the people who are creating AI, because they're doing it and they're just like, we don't care. This is going to be great technology. I don't know, man. It really bugs me out. Here, let's listen to Elon Musk and this goes to people who don't care. Listen to this.
His house in Palo Alto, and
of course. See, they're talking about this dude. Again, one of the people who are the few making decisions for the many, and he doesn't care about us. Listen.
To him late into the night about AI safety. And at least my perception was that Larry was not taking AI safety seriously enough.
What did he say about it?
He really seemed to be one sort of digital superintelligence, basically digital God, if you will. As soon as possible.
He wanted that?
Yes. He's made many public statements over the years that the whole goal of Google is what's called AGI, Artificial General Intelligence, or Artificial Superintelligence. And I agree with him that there's great potential for good, but there's also potential for bad. And so if you've got some radical new technology, you want to try to take the set of actions that maximize the probability that it will do good and minimize the probability it will do bad things.
Yes.
It can't just be hell for leather. Let's just go, barreling forward and, hope for the best. And then at one point, I said, well, what about, we're going to make sure humanity's okay here. And then he called me a speciesist.
Did he use that term?
Yes. And there were witnesses. I wasn't the only one there when he called me a speciesist. And so I was like, okay, that's it. Yes, I'm a speciesist. Okay, you got me. What are you? Yeah, I'm fully a speciesist. Busted. So that was the last straw. At the time, Google had acquired DeepMind, and so Google and DeepMind together had about 3/4 of all the AI talent in the world. They obviously had a tremendous amount of money and more computers than anyone else. So I'm like, okay, we have a unipolar world here, where there's just one company that it has close to a monopoly on AI talent and computers, like scaled computing. And the person who's in charge doesn't seem to care about safety. This is not good. So then I thought, what's the furthest thing from Google would be like a nonprofit that is fully open, because Google was closed for profit. So that's why the open in OpenAI refers to open source, transparency, so people know what's going on.
Yes.
And that we don't want to have like while I'm normally in favor of for profit, we don't want this to be sort of a profit maximizing demon from hell.
That's right.
That just never stops.
Right.
So that's how OpenAI would.
So you want specious incentives here, incentives that.
Yes,
like,
I think we want pro-human.
Yeah.
Let's make the future good for the humans.
Yes.
Yes, because we're humans.
So can you just put it? I keep pressing you, but.
And this is the thing. It seems like Elon, out of all the people who have access to this type of technology, this kind of know-how, this intelligence, he seems to be the only one thinking that way. Sam Altman has he said, people are very creative when asked about jobs. When he was asked about, this is going to take away a lot of jobs. What's going to happen here? He's like, people are very creative. And I'm sure we can't even imagine what jobs that people are going to have or how they're going to fill their time. That's not an answer, man. In fact, you shouldn't even be able to take away millions of jobs unless you have some kind of answer for that. It's wild that they're allowing this. And this is only one country. Canada's not doing anything. Canada's like having a year-round pride parade. But they're not doing anything. But Russia, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know how close they are, but it just seems ridiculous. And I would say, like, at the very least, hopefully China just uses it to oppress their own people more. They're just like, okay, more oppression here, but it'll probably spill over the second that it can. I don't know, man. But at the end of the day, this was just about the debate. That's how I'm ending it. This is just about the debate between Tucker and Joe. And I think Tucker won this debate. And again, I think you're always going to win this debate when you're team human. When you're team, I want to see people keep their jobs. I want to see people keep on working. I want to see people who have purpose. I don't want to see people perish, possibly if this AI gets out of hand and gets to the violent nature. I don't want to see any of that. There's so little that someone on Team AI can say. You heard Joe, he tried to link it to God. He tried to say, oh, it's just universally the path. Like, you don't have an argument when it comes to this whole thing. We're all people. Like Elon Musk just said, we're humans. You should probably make sure things are good for humans. Anyways, guys, like, subscribe, share. I'm out.